Tony will get into that later on today. All right, now I'd like to pass it over to Bob and Greg, and they're going to talk about assignments.
Bob Guston.
Oh, I have to talk now? This is pretty simple. If you weren't on Arbiter, you wouldn't know you were supposed to be here because that's how we notified everybody. And you just heard how the list of things got put together, and once the list is put together, then away we go. So next one. And like I said, you wouldn't know that you were supposed to be on here if you weren't inside the system. Although I'll tell you, I've discovered recently trying to publish some games that Arbiter may not be doing what it's supposed to and may not be sending you the little game notice because I published, I think, all this stuff for Tim O'Toole and Phelps Prescott, and I had a game somewhere I didn't even get a notification. So starting sometime late today and starting tomorrow, I'll start publishing some more stuff. You know, don't run away from this presentation to go look on the internet to see how many games you have already. But every now and then, if you don't see something, you might want to go look, because I'm not sure Arbiter is doing what it's supposed to. Hey, Greg, can you flop my screen over here for a minute?
Did you send that to me, Bob?
No, yeah, I didn't. It got lost.
You'll have to do it verbally like you did in Philly.
Oh, then you can't flash to my little screen?
Okay. No, I got you. Hold on. I can do that.
Yeah.
Fellas, y'all
let people take a look at this real quick. I just want to give you a quick idea of what's going on and how much stuff is out there. If you listen, you know, they're about, and this, everything's in round numbers because it keeps the math easy, but in total in our system at this point in time right now, there's like 1,500 baseball games.
Hey, Bob, go ahead and take control over there.
Okay, got it. 1,500 games or so, and about, I'd say in total, 3,600 slots. But again, because of how the little, you know, rating and other stuff goes together, I wanted to take a couple seconds to actually let you see what I think I talked about in Philadelphia for those of you who were there, and talk about some numbers. And let's just talk about the games everybody wants to know why they don't get, are the Division I games. And remember, in round numbers, these things are. There's about 600 of them out of the 1,500, with about 1,600 slots, 100 umpires that are on the Division I qualified quote-unquote list, that if you just did the math and said, wow, look, 1,600 slots, there's 100 of us, everybody ought to get 16 games apiece. Well, there's lots of other things that impact that. If you're not a conference umpire in either the MEAC or the CAA, or not working conference games in the games we have from Nick Zabelli, there's over 700 slots worth of stuff for conference baseball at the D1 level. And if you're not one of those people that work those things, your 16, which would have consisted of those, those eight are going to go away. There's also on the list this year to create a CAA conference staff, a limited number of people and a specifically identified people who can go work a CAA non-conference game. And there's about 120 of those. If you're not one of those people, you know, there's 3 more that are going to go away. We do lots of stuff for Nick Zabelli and his CBUAO outfit. Belonging to Nick's group or having your information put into Nick's group, Nick normally wouldn't assign you stuff because you're outside his footprint, but I would do it. There's 200 slots of Nick's, and it's not just a matter of putting your name and stuff in Nick's system. You have to buy the uniforms, et cetera, et cetera. But if Nick accepts you and you have all the stuff, here's another 200 slots you could fit in. But if you don't,
hey, Bob,
that's it. And about the
hey, Bob,
only other stuff left.
Bob?
Yes.
Can I sent you as the presenter. Can you please click on sharing your screen?
Oh, I have to do that?
Yes.
Uh-oh, guess what? Then we'll start over.
All right. Share
I'm
that
sorry.
screen so we can see what you're
Ah,
doing.
yeah. Show my screen. That's like show me the money. I'm sorry. Let's start over real quick. It doesn't take long. That's everything I just said. But when you get finished, that idea of, gee, I should be getting 16-1 Division I baseball games, turns out that if you're not a conference person and not a CAA non-conference person and not a Nix and Belly person, that's like, uh-oh, there's 3. And that takes a lot. That doesn't take into account the fact that there are certain people in that group of Division I umpires that by NCAA rules for postseason concerns have to have a minimum of 25 Division I baseball games. So when we start trying to meet a bunch of those extra criteria, and normally because the minimum is 25, this is not a case of if it wasn't good enough, it wouldn't be the minimum. 25 doesn't get people very much attention in the postseason level. So there's a group of, the 6 to 12 people that have been in regionals or are knocking on the door of regionals that aren't going to be working the minimum of 25. They're going to be working more. So it's an explanation trying to let you know that, even though it seems like we have lots of games and lots of slots, there's lots of other stuff that has to be taken into account and has to be done while we play through these numbers and while we go through these assignments. It's not a thing to say, here's hope and despair. There is no despair. As people come on the list and move up and down the list, their games and other stuff change with it. But this is just a little bit of an example to try to let you know that there's a whole lot of stuff going on that you probably don't want to hear about, but it has a lot to do with what comes out the other end when you get your schedule. Okay, Greg, you can take it back over there and put it on back to the charts.
All righty, I did.
Okay. These are just some little basic rules that are bouncing along through here. The key is turnbacks. Now, I know Greg and I have a disconnect. Greg likes emails, and I guess an email would be okay if you turned in a game that's a month away, but it's a lot better and a lot easier, and it's hopefully you will get used to the part of, pick up the phone and call. Because when it's in the middle of the scheduling stuff or in the middle of if this wasn't snow and it was rain, sending somebody an email who's answering the phone 8 hours a day doesn't get you much luck looking at your email.
And fellas, the reason that I prefer my games being turned back by email, unless it's the same day, is I'm not answering the phone relative to college baseball 8 hours a day. I've got a job, and so if I'm dealing with turnbacks, the last thing I do before I go to bed is make sure my inbox is clean of turnbacks and what have you. So that's the difference, and it's why I take it by way of email. Plus, I like to know a year from now when somebody asks questions about their schedule, I can refer to, well, here's your 10 emails where you turn back games. So that's the difference and why we do it a little bit differently.
The other thing is, if you're going to turn something back and you've had it published and you see it on the list, pick up the phone and call the person who's in bold just so they know too. Because the bold person in most games is going to have the, quote, crew chief responsibilities. In the conference games, it's pretty straightforward. It's normally the first person listed. Reminds me, too, to tell you that if you're assigned a game out of Arbiter that belongs to Nick, that's at either, let's see, Georgetown, George Washington, Richmond, University of UNC Charlotte, UMBC, Mount St. Mary's, Navy, Delaware Tech, or sometimes some Knicks people stop off in Petersburg and play. Where you work and and who works where is identified in Nick's system, and follow that. If you're getting multiple assignments at one of our schools, like we split some slots with Nick at Delaware, follow what it says in the arbiter as to who works where and who does what. But somebody's going to be the crew chief. You need to make sure that you take care of the people. You need to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. And be nice to make sure everybody's going to show up.